two sisters were playing on the grass during a sunny family picnic at their vacation home in North Carolina. Their parents turned away for just a few minutes to pack the car, and when they looked back, the girls had vanished. No signs, no sounds, just empty space where laughter had been moments earlier. For more than a decade, every clue led nowhere. Then, 11 years later, something changed, and it started with a metal detector. A blogger, filming one of his usual treasure hunts deep in the woods, noticed something strange. Near an old oak tree, his device lit up with an unusually strong signal. Expecting coins or old tools, he started digging. But what he unearthed would bring back a case the world had nearly forgotten, and a grief a mother had never been able to let go. That same morning, June Morrison was settling down with her coffee when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Something about it made her uneasy. She hesitated, then picked up. "Mrs. Morrison," the voice said, calm but serious. "This is Detective Harrison with Forest County PD. We need you to come in right away. It's about your daughter's case." The mug slipped from June's hand, crashing to the floor. 14 years. It had been that long since anyone had called with news about Emma and Sophie. Her voice trembled. "What did you find?" The answer came gently. "Please come in. We'll explain everything there." On the way to the station, June and her husband Marcus said nothing, but the silence between them spoke louder than words. Their minds had already returned to that day. July, clear skies. The girls had been overjoyed for their holiday picnic. Emma was just 4, holding her stuffed bunny. Sophie, 7, had packed her shiny silver thermos with butterfly stickers she'd placed one by one with pride. That day had started perfectly. The blanket lay under the pines, giving the girls room to play, but still within sight. Sophie was showing Emma how to do cartwheels. Their laughter echoed through the clearing. Then, as June and Marcus began packing up, they took turns carrying things to the car. 10, maybe 15 minutes. When they returned, the girls were gone. At first, they called casually, then loudly, then screaming. Volunteers combed the forest. Nothing, no footprints, no answers, just silence. Now, in the police station, Detective Harrison waited. A sealed evidence box sat on the table. 3 days ago, he began, a man named Mike Garrett was in the forest filming for his treasure hunting channel. He was near a large oak tree when his metal detector gave the strongest reading he'd ever seen. He showed them a photo. The display was maxed out. Expecting something historic, Mike had spent hours carefully digging. But what he found wasn't treasure. Detective Harrison pulled out a clear evidence bag. Inside, a silver thermos, worn but recognizable. June stared, her voice cracking. That's Sophie's. She had it at the picnic. She wouldn't let Emma touch it." Her hands shook. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "There was also fabric," the detective continued. "A green gingham pattern, the dress Sophie wore that day." The remains were enough for identification. The dental records confirmed what the thermos already had. After 14 years, Sophie had been found. The room blurred around her. June could hear herself crying, but it felt like the sound came from someone else. She felt Marcus's arms around her, yet her mind couldn't fully grasp what was happening. Sophie, her little girl, just 7, full of life, attitude, and imagination, had been found just miles from where they had searched for weeks. And all these years, they'd held onto hope, imagining wild, impossible stories of how the girls might have been taken in by someone who only wanted children to love. But now that hope had shattered. "This changes everything," Detective Harrison said, his voice steady but low. "It's no longer a missing person case. We're reopening it, fully. This is a criminal investigation now. We're going back through every single lead, every witness, every file from 14 years ago." Marcus's voice broke through the silence. "What about Emma? Was there any trace of her?" The detective shook his head. "Not at the site where Sophie was found. but we're expanding the search. Every resource we have is being deployed. We're going to search every inch of that forest. And if there's anything to find, we'll find it." June looked up, her voice just above a whisper. "You think Emma could still be alive?" "We're not ruling anything out," Harrison said carefully. "We don't know what happened after that picnic. That's why we need you both to stay close during the search. I know you live hours away now, but we still own the house," Marcus interrupted. "We never sold it. We couldn't. We haven't stepped foot inside it in over a decade, but we'll stay there." The detective nodded. "That'll help. We'll need to revisit everything. Who was around that day? Who might have known your habits? Anyone who showed unusual interest. Some things that seemed meaningless back then might suddenly matter now." June's eyes locked onto the evidence bag, the one holding Sophie's old thermos, still scratched and decorated with fading butterfly stickers. A simple object that cracked open a mystery buried for years. She thought of the blogger, Mike Garrett, who'd gone into the woods chasing lost coins and came back with the nightmare of every parent. "When can we see her?" June asked softly. "The medical examiner still needs time," the detective replied. "But after the formal process is complete, yes, you'll have a chance to say goodbye." After 14 years of silence, they finally had an answer, and it was the one they'd feared the most. But as June gripped Marcus's hand, a small spark lit within her. One feeling she thought she'd lost forever: hope. Because if Sophie had been found and Emma wasn't there, maybe, just maybe, her youngest was still out there, somewhere. "We'll go to the house today," she said, rising to her feet with effort. "And thank you, Detective Harrison, for being the one to tell us, for treating this with care." "We'll find out what happened," he replied. "That's a promise." Later that afternoon, their car crunched over the gravel driveway as they turned into the place that had once been filled with laughter. The holiday home stood unchanged, like a photo frozen in time. The wooden siding still weathered from sun and rain. The porch where the girls played board games still stretched around the house. Even the old tire swing hung in place, its rope now gray and worn. Marcus stopped the engine. Silence followed. "We don't have to do this," he said gently. "We can stay in town." But June shook her head. "The detective might need us close, and if Emma is still out there, I want to be nearby." The front door resisted as Marcus pushed. It groaned open, swollen by years of neglect. A wave of musty air greeted them, along with sunlight piercing through the windows, catching motes of dust in the stillness. Everything was just as they had left it. 14 years ago, after one unbearable night of waiting by the phone, they had locked the house and walked away. Now it stood like a shrine to their last moments as a complete family. June moved through it slowly, like walking through a memory. The living room still held the family photos, Christmas smiles with missing teeth, beach trips with sand-covered faces, cookie-baking afternoons. And then the kitchen. Her breath caught. Emma's crayon drawings were still on the fridge, labeled with childlike care. Mama, Dada, and Sophie. One picture showed their house with bright flowers and a smiling sun. June traced the lines with her fingers, fighting tears. Marcus stepped into the room behind her. "Search teams are gathering at the ranger station," he said softly, and with that, they stepped back into the search for truth, and maybe, just maybe, the chance to bring Emma home. "We should check in, let them know we're here." The ranger station sat at the edge of the forest, now barely recognizable. What used to be a quiet, rustic outpost had been transformed into a full-scale command center. Police cruisers, volunteer cars, even news vans crowded every inch of the gravel lot. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind, separating teams and equipment. Officers barked orders, volunteers received maps and instructions, and the air buzzed with a tense urgency. That's when June saw him. Park Ranger Tom Mitchell. He stood near a folding table littered with maps, animatedly pointing at the forest grid. His hair was grayer now, his uniform a little tighter, but June recognized him instantly. That same too helpful tone, the way he always seemed to be in the middle of everything, and just like 14 years ago, the unease crept over her skin. Mitchell had been the ranger on duty the day her daughters disappeared, the last official to see Sophie and Emma before they vanished. Back then, he was everywhere, leading search groups, giving updates, always offering theories, too eager, too involved. And most disturbingly, he knew far too much about their family's habits, where they liked to picnic, which trail Sophie called her secret path. He'd asked questions that didn't feel right, not for a ranger, not for a stranger. And now, June watched as he directed another team away from the forest's northern stretch, the same section he'd discouraged people from searching all those years ago. She leaned in, straining to hear. "That area's not safe," Mitchell was saying. "Unstable terrain, old mining shafts. We stick to the marked trails." But June knew better. They'd hiked that area as a family. No shafts, no danger. Just a quiet, rocky ridge where Sophie loved to climb and Emma collected pine cones. Without waiting, June moved toward Detective Harrison, who was deep in conversation with another officer. She gently touched his arm. "Can I speak with you a moment?" He stepped aside with her. She glanced back. Mitchell was still talking, still pointing at the maps. "That ranger, Mitchell, he's doing it again," she whispered. "He's steering people away from the same area he avoided during the first search." Harrison frowned. "Tom Mitchell? He's been coordinating volunteers since this all began. Knows this forest better than anyone." "That's exactly what worries me," June said, her voice steady. "Back then, he knew too much. He asked me personal questions about our daughters. He knew our arrival times, where the girls like to play. Everyone told me I was being paranoid, just grieving. But now it's happening again." "Did he ever cross a line? Anything inappropriate?" "No," June admitted. "Nothing concrete, but he was always there, always the one comforting me, offering help, watching." Before Harrison could respond, a familiar voice interrupted. "June Morrison," Mitchell said warmly. He stepped toward them, his expression a practiced mix of concern and sympathy. "I heard you were back. I can't tell you how sorry I am about Sophie. I think about your girls all the time. Not a day has gone by." He reached out gently, but June stepped back without thinking. For a brief second, something shifted in his eyes. Was it irritation? Pain? He quickly masked it with a smile. "I'd love to help however I can," he continued. "In fact, I can take you to where they were last seen. Sometimes returning to a place jogs a memory, brings back something important. I've got a break in about an hour if you'd like." "That's kind of you," Marcus said, stepping beside June. "But we're not ready for that." Mitchell nodded. "Of course, I'll be here, always here." As he walked away, June clutched Marcus's hand. "There's something off about him. I felt it then, and I feel it now." "I know," Marcus said softly. "But the detective's right. Until we have proof, we watch. We wait." Still, as Mitchell returned to the maps, again steering people away from that northern ridge, June couldn't shake the feeling that the truth had always been close. Too close. Later that afternoon, June was in the kitchen, refilling the coffee pot for what felt like the 100th time. Her hands moved automatically. Her mind was elsewhere. Then, the sharp sound of a car door slamming. She looked up. Through the kitchen window, she saw a familiar SUV. Her brother Daniel was stepping out, his expression tight with worry. Something was coming. And deep down, June felt it. Whatever happened next, it was going to change everything. He'd driven the 6-hour route from the city faster than anyone thought possible. The second June opened the front door, her younger brother Daniel pulled her into a tight embrace. "I dropped everything when I heard," he said. "I still can't believe they found Sophie. But Emma, there's still hope, right?" June nodded silently into his shoulder. Daniel had always been the fun uncle, the one who taught the girls silly card tricks. brought too many gifts, and treated them like treasures. Having him there grounded her, just a little. "The police are expanding the search," she said quietly. "They think there's a chance Emma might still be out there." "Then we'll find her," Daniel said firmly. "Whatever it takes." By late afternoon, the quiet holiday home was unrecognizable. Relatives began arriving in waves. Cousins June hadn't seen in years, Marcus's sister from the coast, old friends who'd once combed these woods 14 years ago. The still, dusty rooms were suddenly alive again, full of voices, plans, casseroles, coffee, and a mix of heartbreak and determination. June's aunt quickly took over the kitchen, organizing food for volunteers like a military operation. The dining room table disappeared under stacks of maps and notes, each square labeled with grid codes and assigned search teams. Someone started a call chain, others gathered supplies. The air was heavy, but no longer still. It was moving. Everyone was moving. That afternoon, at the ranger station briefing, Detective Harrison addressed a growing crowd. Daniel stood near the front, arms crossed, laser-focused. "The remains were located here," the detective said, pointing to a spot on the large printed map. "We're now expanding in all directions, especially areas with similar features: dense trees, little foot traffic, and limited visibility." Daniel raised his hand. "What kind of metal detector picked up the thermos? What settings was the blogger using when he found it?" The detective blinked, surprised by the specificity. His footage showed he was in discrimination mode, tuned for non-ferrous metals. The reading hit 99. "That's extremely high," Daniel said, thinking aloud. "Stainless steel would trigger that. Do we have access to other units? Different frequencies might detect things like zippers, snaps, maybe even jewelry the girls were wearing." June glanced at her brother with quiet gratitude. While others led with emotion, Daniel led with action, clear, focused, and relentless. "We do," the detective confirmed. "We've got teams trained and ready to rotate in." But as June looked around, she caught Ranger Mitchell across the room. He was watching them again, specifically watching Daniel. When volunteers began signing up for grid sectors, Daniel stepped directly to the clipboard for the northern quadrant. "I'll take N7, he said, pointing to the very section Mitchell had previously labeled unsafe. "That's rugged terrain," Mitchell said quickly, appearing at his side. "Not ideal for civilian teams." "I'm a trained hiker," Daniel said flatly. "College Mountaineering Club. I can handle it." Mitchell's jaw clenched slightly, but before he could argue, more volunteers began signing up around him. The momentum had shifted. The next morning, at dawn, the search began. Daniel led the team into the woods, June, Marcus, and several cousins moving in a slow, careful line, each spaced a few feet apart, eyes on the ground. 3 hours in, a voice cut through the trees. "Hey, I found something." They rushed over. Carol, one of the volunteers, held up a small ribbon, faded, tangled on a low branch, but still visibly pink. Daniel crouched down, studying it. Could this be Emma's? "June, did she wear ribbons like this?" June stared at the cloth, heart pounding. "She did, but I can't be sure this was hers. It's been out here a long time. Could belong to anyone." "Still," Daniel said, "it's something. Let's get it bagged." As the police photographer stepped in, June noticed something. From the shadows near the tree line, Mitchell, again. He wasn't supposed to be in this section, yet here he was, watching silently. When their eyes met, he smiled, that same unsettling expression from years ago, then disappeared back into the trees. "Marcus," June whispered. "He's here again. He's not even assigned to this zone. Doesn't that seem off to you?" But Marcus was distracted. He was watching Daniel, who had stepped away from the group, phone pressed to his ear. His posture was tense, pacing, hand running through his hair, clearly agitated. When he finally returned, Daniel looked restless. "I've got to head into town," he said. "We're running low on supplies, water, snacks, first aid. I'll stock up." "I'll come," Marcus offered. But Daniel shook his head quickly. You should stay with June. I won't be long. I'll be faster on my own, Daniel had said. There's something I need to check on anyway. Work thing. Even now, some fires don't wait. June had nodded, but something about his urgency didn't sit right. It felt excessive, even theatrical, for a simple supply run. And when she glanced back, she didn't miss Ranger Mitchell watching the whole exchange with quiet interest, speaking into his radio while his gaze stayed locked on Daniel. It hit her then. Everyone was watching everyone. Since Sophie's discovery, the grief that once united them was starting to crack, and suspicion was seeping through like water finding its way into hidden fractures. Later that day, June drove into town with a short supply list. The search teams were going through water and medical items faster than expected, and truthfully, she also needed a break. Every corner of the holiday home echoed with memories, the kind that squeezed her chest when she was alone for too long. As she pulled into the shopping center, something immediately caught her eye: Daniel's black SUV. But instead of parking near the front entrance, like any normal shopper, it was tucked alone in the back lot, reversed in, facing the exit, like someone ready for a quick getaway. Daniel had said he was going home, 40 minutes away, for a work call. Why lie? June parked in front and sat for a moment, thinking. Then she grabbed her purse and walked inside. Maybe he just changed his mind. Maybe he needed snacks. Or maybe something else. The blast of cold air greeted her as she entered the store. She scanned the aisles, expecting to find Daniel grabbing granola bars or sports drinks. But he wasn't in the snack aisle. He was at the pharmacy counter, and what he was buying didn't make sense. She stayed hidden behind a vitamin display, watching in silence. Daniel's basket was overflowing. Large packs of feminine hygiene products, massive bottles of antiseptic, gauze, tape, cases of protein bars, bottled water, and more. The pharmacist gave him a puzzled look. "Big haul," she said. "This your third bulk order this week? Stocking a shelter or something?" Daniel gave a strained laugh. "Yeah, something like that. Just hurricane season coming. I like to be ready." Hurricane season? They were in the mountains. The pharmacist raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. June stepped back, heart pounding. Why would her brother need that many supplies? He lived alone, no girlfriend, no roommates, and feminine products? Dozens of boxes? "Will that be all?" the pharmacist asked. "That's $487.23. Daniel fumbled for his wallet and then saw her. His expression changed instantly, from surprise to alarm to a forced smile. "June, what are you doing here?" She stepped out from behind the display calmly. "Picking up things for the search teams. I saw your car and thought I'd say hi, see if you needed help." She looked down at the counter at the pile of supplies. "That's a lot of stuff." Daniel hesitated. "Oh, this? Yeah, I'm donating to a women's shelter. They asked for help. You know me, always lending a hand." But June did know him, and that was the problem. Daniel had never volunteered for anything in his life, and now his nervous energy was louder than his words. "I should get going," he said abruptly, swiping his card. "Can't keep the client waiting." He grabbed the bags and rushed toward the exit, dropping one as he fumbled with his keys. When he bent down to retrieve it, the back hatch of his SUV opened, and June saw what was inside: new padlocks, coiled yellow rope, more bottled water, boxes of medical supplies, everything packed in neat rows. Daniel slammed the hatch shut quickly and drove off, fast enough to leave black marks on the pavement. That evening, June could barely focus on dinner. The house was noisy, filled with relatives and search updates, but she sat at the table, quietly moving food around her plate. Finally, she broke the silence. "Daniel was acting strange today," she said. "Really strange." Marcus looked up. "What do you mean?" "He bought medical supplies, food, water, but also dozens of boxes of feminine products. The pharmacist said it was his third large order this week, and there were padlocks in his car, rope. What is he doing?" Marcus frowned. "Maybe he's seeing someone and hasn't told us? You know Daniel, he keeps things close." June shook her head. "Marcus, it wasn't a few things. It was shelter-level stockpiling. And today, he was asking me about evidence collection. How long DNA lasts, chain of custody procedures. Who asks those things unless they're hiding something? Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. You're exhausted. We all are. Maybe Daniel's just overreacting, trying to help in the only way he knows how. But June wasn't convinced. Not anymore. June wanted to believe him, wanted to explain away everything she'd seen. But as she lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, all she could think about were the supplies in Daniel's car, the look on his face at the pharmacy, the way he had rushed off like someone trying to outrun the truth. Everyone's eyes were still on Park Ranger Mitchell, but what if they were watching the wrong man? The shadows from the pine trees outside moved slowly across the wooden beams above. Beside her, Marcus slept soundly, but June hadn't slept a minute. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face again, and the padlocks, and the rope. By 3 a.m., she couldn't take it anymore. She reached over and gently shook Marcus. "Marcus, wake up, please. I need to talk." He stirred, groggy. "Is something wrong? Is it about the search?" "It's about Daniel." In the dim light, her words tumbled out, a stream of all the pieces that didn't add up. The supplies, the lies, the sudden errands, his strange questions about evidence, his energy, nervous, scattered, hiding something. "June, he's your brother," Marcus said, sitting up slowly. "You've known him your whole life." "That's exactly what makes this worse," she whispered. She reached for her phone and turned on the screen. "Earlier, I was looking through old photos for the police, something they could use, and I noticed something." She scrolled and showed Marcus a string of pictures. Daniel at the cabin for 4th of July. Daniel in the background of birthday photos. Daniel popping up again and again, sometimes in pictures June didn't even remember him being there for. "He was around all the time," she said, "more than I remembered, and he knew our schedule, when we'd visit, where the girls liked to play. Sometimes he'd just show up without being invited." "June?" Marcus's tone was hesitant, cautious. She pushed forward anyway. "Remember what Detective Harrison said back in the beginning? Sometimes the person no one suspects is the one." The thought burned like acid. "And there's more. Today Daniel asked me if police dogs would be used, said he was allergic. But Marcus, he had a German Shepherd for years. He's never been allergic to dogs." Silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. "Even if something's off," Marcus said slowly, "we can't just accuse him based on weird shopping habits and questions about dogs. Everyone's on edge. Everyone's acting strange. Look at Mitchell. You're convinced he's hiding something too." "Then let's talk to him," June said firmly. "First thing tomorrow morning. We'll go to his place and just talk, ask questions. If it's nothing, we'll know. But I can't keep pretending nothing's wrong." Marcus nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but we need to be careful how we do this. If we're wrong, it could ruin everything between you and your brother." "I know," June said softly. "But if we're right and we stay silent..." They agreed. They'd visit Daniel first thing, before the search resumed. Around 5 a.m., June finally drifted into sleep, her dreams filled with flashing numbers on metal detectors and Daniel's SUV disappearing into a forest road. She woke to the sharp sound of Marcus's phone ringing. Sunlight poured through the windows. They'd overslept, Marcus answered, still half asleep. "Hello?" "Yes, this is Marcus Morrison." June sat up, watching his face change as the conversation unfolded. His expression tightened, alert now, serious. "Yes, we were about to leave now." "Wait, what kind of evidence?" "From my office?" He paused. "I don't understand what that has to do with anything." He covered the phone and looked at her. "They need me at the station. Now, something about new evidence. Something tied to people I worked with 14 years ago." "Both of us?" June asked. "No, just me." He said it was sensitive, confidential. "I should come alone." He was already dressing. "I'm sorry. I know we were going to talk to Daniel." "Go," June said, though something twisted in her stomach. It might be important. He kissed her forehead. Wait for me. Don't go to Daniel's without me, okay? But as the sound of his car disappeared down the gravel road, June knew she wasn't going to wait. The questions were too loud, the doubt too sharp. It's just a conversation, she told herself. What harm could come from talking to your own brother? She got dressed quickly, trying to push away the feeling in her gut, the feeling that told her something was very wrong. Daniel was family. There had to be an innocent explanation. There had to be. She pulled into his long gravel driveway, hands trembling on the steering wheel. His house sat deep on a 5-acre stretch of dense wooded land, property left to him by their father. The trees were thick, the air still, and the nearest neighbor was too far to hear a scream. June sat for a moment, engine running, her eyes fixed on the house. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. She had always thought it was a little strange how, after his divorce, Daniel had chosen such isolation. 5 wooded acres, far from neighbors, far from help. Back then, she chalked it up to needing space. But now, the seclusion felt different, deliberate. He opened the door in pajamas, clearly caught off guard. June, it's early. What's going on? We need to talk, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. About yesterday, about everything. His face shifted into concern, maybe a little too quickly. Of course, come in, I'll make some tea. She followed him through the familiar house. Family photos lined the hallway. Holidays, birthdays, the girls smiling. Images that once felt warm now made her stomach twist. There was Emma, as a baby, Sophie in Daniel's lap on Christmas morning. Ordinary memories, now painted with doubt. In the kitchen, Daniel moved with practiced ease, filling the kettle, reaching for mugs, everything too smooth. I know I've been acting strange, he said, still facing away. This whole thing with Sophie, the search for Emma, it's bringing up a lot of things I didn't expect. June didn't respond. Her eyes had moved to the counter, and what was sitting there made her heart stop. Receipts. Dozens of them. Her gaze scanned the items. Industrial-grade padlocks, soundproofing foam, heavy-duty tarps, bleach. Why would he need this? Then, through the kitchen window, she saw something she hadn't noticed in years. A concrete bunker tucked into the far corner of the yard, just visible beyond the tree line. Their father had built it decades ago, a relic from the Cold War. Daniel had claimed he'd sealed it up long ago, said it was unsafe. But now, the path leading to it had been cleared, freshly. Find something interesting? She turned quickly. Daniel was no longer at the stove. He stood directly behind her, his expression colder now, sharper. The warmth was gone. I was just, June stammered. These receipts were sitting here. You always were too curious, he said, tone flat. His hand reached casually toward the knife block, always poking around, just like that day at the picnic. June froze. What are you talking about? You should have been watching them, he said. His fingers curled around the handle of a large kitchen knife. But you were so busy cleaning up, back and forth to the car. They were alone. Her voice barely came out. Daniel, what are you saying? They were perfect, June, so full of light. Sophie, smart, stubborn, always asking questions. Emma, with those wide eyes, always trusting. I watched them grow, visit after visit. His voice had taken on a dreamy, unsettling quality. They needed to be protected, preserved. The world, it ruins things. June stepped back, edging toward the door. I need to call Marcus. Daniel blocked her path. The knife caught the light. You're not going anywhere. Daniel, please. You ruined everything. You always did. You and Marcus. You never saw how special they were. I did. And that day, when I saw them alone, it felt like fate. June's knees went weak. You took them, she whispered. You took my babies. I saved them, Daniel snapped. His face twisted with a rage so intense it looked like something else had taken over. Sophie fought. She cried. She was too loud. But Emma was young enough to understand. She learned. She learned that I was all she needed. He grabbed her arm, the knife pressing against her ribs. "Since you're so curious," he said, breath shaking, "let me show you what I've built." He forced her out the back door, across the yard, through the brush. June's mind was racing, but the pressure of the blade kept her silent. Daniel spoke the whole way, his voice calm again, almost proud. 14 years, June. I kept her safe, away from all this filth, all the noise. I gave her everything. He unlocked the heavy padlock on the bunker door and pulled it open. Cold air rushed out. Concrete stairs led into the earth. "Move," he ordered. She descended slowly. The smell was damp, earth and something else, something human. Battery-powered lights flickered on along the walls. The scene before her knocked the breath from her lungs. It was a room, a prison, a chemical toilet in the corner, stacks of canned food, water, a cot with restraints strapped to the sides. And in the far corner, curled in a pile of blankets, was a young woman. She looked up, her voice small, childlike. "Uncle Danny, who is she? I don't like strangers." June collapsed to her knees. Even after all these years, even through the hollow face, the tangled hair, she knew. "Emma," she whispered. The girl cocked her head, confused. "How does she know my name, Uncle Danny? You said no one knew about me. You said I was your special girl." And behind them, the heavy bunker door slammed shut. Daniel's heavy footsteps thudded down the concrete stairs. The steel door slammed shut behind him with a sharp, echoing clang that rattled June to her core. Then, the click of the padlock sliding into place. She could hear him above now, pacing, muttering to himself. His voice was muffled, but the agitation in his tone was unmistakable. He wasn't just thinking, he was arguing with himself. June turned to Emma. Her baby girl, now a young woman she barely recognized, sat curled in the corner like a frightened child, knees hugged tight to her chest, arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller than June remembered, not physically, but spiritually, like someone who had shrunk away from the world. "Emma, sweetheart," June said gently, taking a step forward. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Emma's eyes darted up, wide and wary. "Uncle Danny says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers?" she whispered, her voice high and sing-song, frozen in childhood. "He says strangers want to take me away and hurt me." June's heart shattered. "No, baby, I'm not a stranger. She couldn't say it. "How do you tell your daughter that you're the mother she's been trained to forget?" She inched closer, reaching out. But Emma flinched violently, pressing herself deeper into the corner. "No touching," she said quickly. "Only Uncle Danny can touch me. I'm his special girl." The words, the voice, the patterns, every sentence felt rehearsed, recited, implanted. It wasn't Emma speaking. It was the result of years of psychological manipulation. June saw it clearly. Her daughter had been reprogrammed into someone Daniel could control. Suddenly, the pacing above stopped. The lock rattled. Then the door creaked open, sunlight flooding down into the bunker. Daniel stood at the top of the stairs, outlined in light, holding a folded blue tarp and a coil of rope. He descended slowly. His face was calm now, cold, resigned. "Time to go, Emma," he said softly. "We're going to take a little trip to the forest." Emma perked up. "Are we going to see the birds? You said we could see the birds someday." Daniel nodded with a twisted smile. "That's right." He stepped toward her, but June blocked his path. "No," she said, voice steady. "You're not touching her." Daniel's face twisted. "She's too old now, June. Don't you see? She grew up. I kept her safe as long as I could, but she's ruined now." He reached for Emma's arm roughly, yanking her to her feet. Emma whimpered but didn't resist, conditioned for obedience. "I should have ended it years ago," Daniel muttered, "but I held on. Thought maybe I could keep her the way she was. I was wrong." "Daniel, please," June pleaded, following him up the stairs. "She's your niece. You loved her." "I did," he said coldly. "That's why she has to go now, before the world corrupts what's left." He paused midway, dragging Emma beside him. There was a twisted pride in his voice. Sophie was different. She fought, cried for you. I couldn't control her. She only lasted a few months. I buried her near the cabin, close enough to be found eventually. It was a perfect trick, made everyone think both girls were gone together. That lie bought me 14 more years with Emma. My husband's on his way, June said quickly. The police are expecting us. They'll come looking. Daniel let out a laugh, bitter and hollow. Marcus, he's at the station right now, buried in questions about his job from 14 years ago. That anonymous tip I sent, that'll keep him busy for hours. He turned back toward the stairs. Plenty of time to take Emma into the forest, bury her right, then come back for you. That was it. Something inside June snapped, not with fear, but with fire. She would not lose her daughter again. As Daniel reached the top, struggling with the tarp and Emma's weight, June launched herself up the stairs. She slammed into his back, hard. He stumbled forward, dropping his grip on Emma. More importantly, the hunting knife tucked in his belt slipped free and clattered to the floor. June didn't hesitate. She dove for it. Her fingers wrapped around the handle, and as Daniel turned, his face twisted with rage, she was already sprinting. She burst through the door, back into the house, heart pounding like a war drum. Behind her, Daniel's footsteps pounded the stairs. She didn't look back. The landline was on the kitchen counter. She grabbed it, hands shaking, and dialed. 911, what's your emergency? This is June Morrison, she gasped. I'm at 445 Woodside Drive. My daughter Emma, the girl who went missing 14 years ago, she's here. She's alive. And my brother Daniel Morrison is the one who took her. Please send police right now. Daniel burst into the kitchen doorway, froze when he saw the phone in her hand, already connected. His face shifted. Disbelief, then fury, then something else. Realization. He was caught. June could hear the dispatcher's voice still coming through the phone, but all she could do was keep repeating the address, louder, faster, as panic overtook her. My daughter is alive, she cried. She's in the bunker behind the house. Please, send help. For a second, Daniel just stood frozen, as if his mind hadn't caught up with what was happening. Then, like a switch flipped, his survival instinct kicked in. He turned sharply, grabbed his keys off the hook by the door, and bolted outside. Through the window, June heard the SUV engine roar. Tires sprayed gravel as he tore down the driveway. He's fleeing in a black SUV, she shouted to the dispatcher. I don't know the plate. Just please hurry. My daughter, she's alive. She dropped the phone and ran back to the bunker. Emma was still on the stairs, standing exactly where Daniel had left her. Her arms were stiff at her sides, her face blank with confusion. Where did Uncle Danny go? She asked in that same innocent tone. He said we were going to see birds. June rushed to her, wrapping her arms around the girl who barely remembered her. She could feel every rib beneath the oversized clothes. Emma didn't return the hug, but she didn't fight it either. It's okay, June whispered. You're safe now. I've got you. I've got you. Sirens approached quickly, fast and many, until the sound filled the sky. Police vehicles swarmed the driveway. Officers leapt out, weapons drawn, until June raised her hands and yelled, He's gone. Daniel fled. My daughter's here. She's here. She helped Emma up the stairs, shielding her from the sudden light. The girl blinked, raising a pale hand to her face. She hadn't seen daylight in years. A man in plainclothes approached carefully. Ma'am, he said, I'm Detective Harrison. Is this Emma? Emma looked at him with wide, unsure eyes. When is Uncle Danny coming back? She asked. He said we were going to the forest. I don't like when plans change. Harrison's expression remained professional, but the horror was clear in his eyes. He called for ambulances and backup. 2 officers entered the bunker, and seconds later, one came rushing out, pale and visibly shaken. The other stayed behind, documenting everything. The restraints on the bed, the claw marks on the concrete wall, the calendar where Daniel had written cryptic messages and counted down unholy milestones. Emma kept asking for Daniel. Is Uncle Danny mad at me? She asked a paramedic. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. the woman replied softly. You did everything right. You're very brave. Uncle Danny says I'm brave when I take the sleepy medicine without crying. Do I have to take more medicine now? That's when Marcus arrived. His car screeched to a halt in the driveway. He'd heard something over the police scanner and raced home. When he saw Emma, standing, alive, he dropped to his knees in the driveway. Emma! Oh God. Emma! Emma tilted her head. Who is that man? Why is he crying? Uncle Danny doesn't like crying. He says crying is ugly. The paramedics gently guided both mother and daughter to the ambulance. We're taking her to the hospital, one of them explained. She needs full medical evaluation. Emma went willingly, still asking if Uncle Danny would be there, still unsure of what was happening. As the ambulance doors closed, June held her daughter's hand, her living, breathing daughter, who didn't know her at all. The emergency room was loud with controlled chaos. June and Emma were wheeled through two separate doors, June for bruising and shock, Emma for psychiatric trauma care. I need to stay with her, June cried. A nurse gently touched her shoulder. We know, but your daughter needs specialized care right now. Our trauma psychologist, Dr. Patel, will help her feel safe. Through the glass door, June could hear Emma's voice drifting out. Where's Uncle Danny? He doesn't like hospitals. He says doctors try to steal our secrets. Dr. Patel's voice was low, calm, reassuring, but June couldn't hear the words. She just gripped the rails of her hospital bed as a doctor examined the bruises Daniel left on her arms. Time passed in pieces. IVs, officers with clipboards, hushed conversations, updates. Then finally, Detective Harrison returned. His expression was grim, but this time also relieved. We got him, he said simply. State troopers picked him up at a rest stop near the state line. He's in custody. June nearly collapsed with relief. Is he talking? She asked. Oh, he's doing more than talking, Harrison replied. He gave a full confession. He's trying to trade it for life in prison instead of the death penalty. He sat down and opened his notebook. June braced herself. He says it started with an addiction. Online content involving young girls. Then, 14 years ago, he says he was just driving near the cabin, said it wasn't planned. But then he saw the girls playing alone. You and your husband were cleaning up, loading the car. June closed her eyes. She remembered the moment, the silence, the emptiness when she turned around. He told them you needed them, Harrison continued. Said you were waiting at the car. Promised them ice cream if they came with him. Said they trusted him because he was Uncle Danny. Tears welled in June's eyes. Of course they did, she whispered. He was family. And that's what made the betrayal unforgivable. He took them straight to the bunker, Harrison said quietly. He claims he'd only been preparing it as a fantasy, that he never really intended to take anyone, until that day. Through the hospital room door, June could hear Emma's voice, still soft and childlike. Sometimes I remember a lady who sings songs, but Uncle Danny says that's just dreams, bad dreams that go away if I behave. June's chest ached. Harrison continued. Both girls were kept in that bunker at first, but when we publicly announced we'd be searching all family-owned properties, Daniel panicked. He rented a storage unit in Millerville under a fake name, moved the girls there for 3 days. A storage unit? June's voice cracked. He put them in a storage unit. Climate-controlled, Harrison added bitterly. He made sure to mention that, like it somehow made it okay. He shook his head. The officers who searched his property didn't even open the bunker. Old padlock, overgrown entrance, it looked abandoned. At that moment, Dr. Patel stepped out of Emma's room and approached them gently. Mrs. Morrison, Emma is stable for now, but she's extremely traumatized. Her sense of reality is fragile. She's showing classic signs of conditioning and severe attachment to Daniel. She still calls him her protector. Does she remember anything about before? June asked. There are fragments, the doctor replied. When I said certain words, Mama, home, Sophie, her pulse jumped, her pupils dilated. The memories are there, but they've been suppressed. She mentioned a lullaby, said she sometimes hears it, but that Uncle Danny tells her it's not real. Then Harrison added more gently this time, "There's more about Sophie." June turned to him slowly. She never adapted the way Emma did, always trying to escape. About 4 months in, after the public searches died down, she managed to break the lock while Daniel was at work. She made it to the woods before he caught her. June's hand covered her mouth, her brave 7-year-old daughter running through the trees, trying to find her way home. He says he panicked, hit her, claimed it was an accident. He buried her near your holiday home, on purpose. The soil there has high iron content. He figured one day someone with a metal detector would find her thermos, that her discovery would end the story, convince everyone both girls were gone. He called it insurance. A sudden noise in the hallway turned their heads. Marcus had arrived, still in the same clothes from the station. When he saw June, he rushed to her. "Daniel, is it true?" he asked, his voice breaking. "How could my own brother?" Harrison stood quietly. "I'll give you a moment," he said, "but there's one last thing. In Daniel's car, we found tarps, shovels, rope, and chemicals. Based on the purchases and his movement, we believe he planned to end Emma's life tonight." June stood frozen. "You saved her," Harrison said softly. "By showing up when you did, you saved your daughter." The detective walked away, and for a long moment, they just stood in silence, the weight of everything crashing down. "She aged out," June whispered. "That's what he said. She wasn't a child anymore, so she didn't matter to him." Then Dr. Patel returned. "Would you like to see her? We've given her a light sedative. She was getting overwhelmed, but she's awake." They followed her down the corridor. Emma lay in the hospital bed, still, pale, quiet. At 18, she looked years younger, her body small, her spirit barely visible. Her eyes followed them as they entered, cautious and unsure. June stepped forward first. "Emma," she said softly, "it's Mom and Dad." Emma blinked. "I don't have those," she said simply. "Uncle Danny says I don't need them. I'm special because I only need him." June sat slowly at the edge of the bed, trying not to cry. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began to hum, the lullaby she'd sung every night when Emma was small, mockingbirds and diamond rings. Emma's eyes twitched, her breath caught. "I know that song," she said, "but Uncle Danny, he doesn't like it when I hum it." June kept humming, reaching for her daughter's hand. Emma didn't pull away, not this time, but she didn't squeeze back either. Marcus stood on the other side of the bed, tears rolling down his cheeks. "The lady in my dreams sings that song," Emma murmured, voice drowsy. "She smells like flowers, but Uncle Danny says she's not real." "She's real," June whispered. "I'm real." Emma's eyes fluttered, and then the faintest squeeze of her hand. Maybe it was just reflex, or maybe it was memory, but June felt it. It was there. She kept humming, every line, every chorus, again and again. And every time she reached the part Emma used to love, she felt the slightest pressure of fingers wrapped in hers. Her daughter was still in there. Beneath the trauma, beneath the programming, she was in there, and she was alive. Outside the room, Detective Harrison coordinated final details with officers. The case against Daniel Morrison was airtight. Full confession, physical evidence, digital records. Daniel now sat in a holding cell, no more secrets to hide. And in a forest not far away, search teams continued their work, not because they expected to find more bodies, but to be sure they never missed a single hidden truth again. But inside that quiet hospital room, June held her daughter's hand and sang. And though Emma didn't speak, every now and then, she squeezed her mother's hand to the rhythm of a half-remembered song.